This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. Good morning, I'm John Trout. It's Thursday, October 24th, 2024. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning.
Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are courting key constituencies with less than 2 weeks before Election Day.
Get out and vote, please.
I'm Jennifer King.
Some Americans seemingly changing their tune on early voting.
And enthusiastic about voting early.
I'm Clayton Neville.
Arizona police arrested a man for what's being called multiple cases of political violence. I'm Sue Aller.
Foreign influences have shown continued efforts to try to sway the U.S. election. Hi up in Juani, Washington.
It was a down day for stocks yesterday. McDonald's dragging the Dow lower. Tesla shares popped last night after hours. I'm Jessica Ettinger.
Judge Curtis Farber has granted a prosecution request to consolidate Harvey Weinstein's retrial on 2 sex crime charges. I'm Archie Zaraletta.
All ahead on America in the Morning. Kamala Harris and Donald Trump continue to focus on swing states with wildly different strategies to energize the coalitions they need to win. As correspondent Jennifer King reports, the vice president appeared on 3 networks for interviews and a town hall, while the former president held rallies throughout Georgia.
Donald Trump is increasingly unhinged and unstable. And in a second term, people like John Kelly would not be there to be the guardrails against his propensities and his actions. Those who once tried to stop him from pursuing his worst impulses would no longer be there, and no longer be there to rein him in.
Our movement is bringing together Americans of all backgrounds who believe in freedom, democracy, and a thing called common sense. Much of it's common sense.
Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are courting key constituencies with less than 2 weeks before Election Day.
Get out and vote, please.
Rapper Eminem and Barack Obama were an unlikely duo, headlining a Harris Waltz rally Tuesday night in Detroit.
I'm nervous, but on the surface I look calm and ready.
Harris has been targeting undecided moderates, college-educated suburbanites, and women.
My plans are focused on working people.
She spoke with Hallie Jackson in an interview for NBC News.
I will never assume that anyone in our country should elect a leader based on their gender or their race.
Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago?
Donald Trump rallied with supporters in Greensboro, North Carolina, Tuesday night.
Too big to rig. We got to make it too big to rig, everybody.
Trump's team has been firing up his base with tough talk aimed at low propensity voters.
We're not going to have World War III. We're closer to World War III right now than we have been ever, maybe, ever. And that will be a war like no other because the power of the weaponry, nuclear weapons, the power it's indescribable, and you don't even want to think about it.
He talks about there being a bloodbath if he loses.
President Joe Biden met with Harris campaign workers in New Hampshire.
I know this sounds bizarre. It sounds like if I said this 5 years ago, you'd lock me up. We got to lock him up. Politically lock him up. This guy is a danger to the republic.
I'm Jennifer King.
There are long lines for voters and long days for election administrators as record numbers of Americans vote early in the November 5th presidential election. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports.
Voting early is an option in 36 American states. Typically, states vary on how exactly that process works. It's a method that was popular in 2020 amid the COVID pandemic, but has since lost some steam. However, early voting records broke in this week in Texas and in Georgia. Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger said that when the polls closed on Tuesday,
we have received 1,929,628 ballots.
In 2020, early voting was heavily associated with Democrats, but Republican Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin told Fox Business things are shifting.
One of the big shifts is we've been pushing early voting so hard since 2021 and I won. And we've seen Republicans get so much more comfortable and enthusiastic about voting early.
Former President Trump, who once adamantly encouraged voters to vote on Election Day, seemingly with a change of tune on Brian Kilmeade's Fox News radio show.
The main thing I say is vote. But ideally, I guess a lot of people people would like to see early voting, where you stand a little bit. And I'm okay either way, Brian, really. I really am.
Americans braving long lines, several hours long in some spots, but doing what they have to have their voices heard.
I mean, I stood with my parents when they came to vote back in 2020, so I'm accustomed to longer lines every once in a while, too.
Yeah.
So
it's a presidential election, I guess.
Yeah. It's something I can put up with.
Election officials hard at work across the country. In Texas, a video went viral of a man saying he voted for Trump, but the ballot ready voted for Harris. Tarrant County Election Administrator Clint Ludwig was quick to clarify.
What we believe to have occurred is the individual did make a selection on the machine, and that selection was printed on their ballot. When they went to cast their ballot, they checked it and realized that was not the vote that they wanted.
Election officials stressing transparency as some misinformation floats across social media and long lines form outside the polls. I'm Clayton Neville.
World superpowers attempt to influence our elections when America in the Morning continues after these messages. This is America in the Morning. Welcome back. A check of the potential for severe weather today. Here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Following a fairly typical autumn lull in severe weather over recent days, the risk for severe storms does return later today as the leading edge of a warm front brings some moisture from the Gulf of Mexico northward into the nation's midsection. Humidity levels will not be as extreme as would be expected in the summer, but this moisture will be enough to present the potential for severe thunderstorms to develop this afternoon and last into the evening hours from central and southern Iowa southwestward to far northeastern Kansas, where hail will be the most likely mode of severe weather, but some locally gusty winds can also occur. Otherwise, showers and some periods of steadier rain extend from areas near the border of the Dakotas into Minnesota, and there can be thunder in some spots. West of there, expect showers of rain and even some high elevation snow from around the Montana-Wyoming border into western Wyoming and perhaps even eastern Idaho for a time, but that's essentially it for precipitation across the west today as high pressure builds into more of the region. A cooler day can be expected for interior sections of the Northwest, but it stays quite warm today from the deserts of southern California through southern Arizona and New Mexico and across the central and southern plains into the south under sunshine. In the east, a departing cold front will mean a break from a rather warm start to the week across the Northeast, with cooler air filtering in on gusty winds, especially near the coast from Maine to Maryland. Those winds, along with the increasingly dry air behind this front, can combine with an excess of dry leaves to create a high fire risk once again today, as high pressure returns to the area. In Charleston, West Virginia, expect a cooler day with sun and a high of 66. For Des Moines, Iowa, clouds build through the afternoon. Watch for late day or evening showers and even a heavy thunderstorm, the high 72. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Remember to follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. An arrest has been made in a string of political attacks in Arizona, including firing shots multiple times at a Democrat Party office in Tempe. Sue Aller reports.
It's not uncommon with the presidential election just weeks away to see a political sign on the front lawns of people's homes. But what happened in Ahwatukee, Arizona, is illegal. Tempe police recently arrested a 60-year-old man named Jeffrey Michael Kelly. Here's what Tempe Police Chief Ken McCoy had to say at a press conference on Wednesday.
He attached clear plastic baggies containing a white powdery substance labeled biohazard to those signs. Yesterday, we took him into custody, thankfully without incident.
Authorities say the initial testing revealed the substance to be baking powder. Police also say that over the past 2 months, Kelly is suspected of 3 separate shooting incidents targeting the Democratic National Committee offices. No one was hurt, and neighbors of Kelly told Fox 10 Phoenix that they are surprised.
It's a shame. He seemed like a nice guy. And as you always hear, he was quiet, stayed to himself.
Evidence collected from Kelly's home included more than 120 guns, ammunition, body armor, and a grenade launcher. He has been charged with several felonies, including unlawful discharge of a firearm and committing an act of terrorism. I'm Sue Aller.
Efforts now on multiple fronts by foreign countries, including China and Russia, to sway U.S. voters. Correspondent Haya Panjwani reports.
A new threat intelligence report from Microsoft says foreign influences have shown continued efforts to try to sway the U.S. election, and there are signs that their activity will grow stronger as Election Day comes closer. The company said Russian operatives are doubling down on fake videos to smear Kamala Harris's campaign, while Chinese-linked social media campaigns are criticizing down-ballot candidates who are critical of China. Microsoft also says Iranian actors who allegedly sent emails aimed at intimidating U.S. voters in 2020 have been surveying election-related websites and major media outlets. Russia, China, and Iran have all rejected claims that they're seeking to meddle with the U.S. election. Haya Panjwani, Washington.
A reassurance to customers from McDonald's USA president. When America in the Morning continues after these messages. Welcome back. This is America in the Morning. Striking Boeing workers rejected a proposed contract that would have ended a costly 41-day work stoppage. The machinists' union turned down a deal that includes a 35% wage increase over the next 4 years, a $7,000 ratification bonus, and improved retirement offerings. Workers were demanding a 40% raise, along with the reinstatement of the company's defined pension, a key sticking point in the talks. Boeing reported a $6 billion loss in the last quarter, mainly due to the strike, and also announced plans to cut 17,000 jobs. With more this Thursday, the Business Report is brought to you by Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments is a fiduciary, always putting clients' interests first. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Here's CNBC's Jessica Ettinger.
Wall Street opens this morning after bond yields rose yesterday, pushing stocks lower. The Dow down 400 points. The Nasdaq was down almost 300.
Treasury yields obviously have been the pressure point. We came into this week probably with some pent-up selling. It's not a big deal. Pre-election, you really should expect a little bit more chop, and that's what we're getting.
CNBC's Mike Santoli. Tesla shares were higher last night in after-hours trading on stronger than expected quarterly profit. IBM shares slipped on a revenue disappointment in the quarter. That came out after hours yesterday, too. McDonald's shares dragged the Dow lower after the CDC linked its quarter pounders and maybe the onions on them to an E. coli outbreak. At least 49 cases, 10 states, 10 hospitalizations, and someone has died. McDonald's USA President Joe Erlinger spoke on NBC's Today Show.
It is the quarter pounder and two ingredients on that quarter pounder that are under investigation by the CDC. So, I want to say to our consumers that you can confidently go to McDonald's today.
But investors aren't confident that the public will still eat at McDonald's, and it may take a little while for sales to bounce back based on how long it took at other chains that had the same problem.
Chipotle, that took 18 months before people were to come back. Jack in the Box, very similar. Same thing with Taco Bell. It's an 18-month period. Now, the one thing is that this is one death. It's isolated. Not since October 11th that we've seen anything. They think it might be the onions. It's not the hamburger. They think it might be these states. It's not that states. Baird and Guggenheim downgraded just simply because there's too much unknown.
That's CNBC Mad Money host Jim Cramer. Just when you thought the residential real estate market couldn't get any slower, home sales hit a 14-year low last month as homes sit on the market longer unsold.
Existing home sales in September fell 1% month to month, the lowest level since October of 2010. And the pressure continues on prices. The median price of an existing home sold in September, $404,000. Homes are sitting longer, an average 28 days compared with just 21 days a year ago.
CNBC's Diana Olick. The average rate on a 30-year fixed home loan this morning, 6.9%, according to Mortgage News Daily. On today's watch list, we get earnings from UPS, American Airlines, Hasbro, and Honeywell. We get newly built home sales numbers for September. We find out how many people applied for unemployment benefits last week. And Halloween is 1 week from tonight.
Thanks for the reminder, CNBC's Jessica Ettinger. When we return, from the rat race to the race car, America in the Morning, back after these messages. Welcome back. This is America in the Morning. The retrial for disgraced movie producer Harvey Weinstein on sexual assault charges in New York has been pushed to at least next year. Correspondent Margie Zaraletta reports.
Judge Curtis Farber has granted a prosecution request to consolidate Harvey Weinstein's retrial on 2 sex crime charges with a new charge of assault. Weinstein's defense attorneys had argued to keep them separate.
Mr. Weinstein is a fighter, and he's here to fight this case, and he's going to fight with every ounce of strength in his body.
The trial was tentatively set for November 12th, but Weinstein attorney Arthur Aidala says he needs time to hire a private investigator to look into the new allegation.
We have some homework to do, and I anticipate that this trial realistically will be tried in the late winter, early spring of 2025.
Farber says he will decide on a new trial date by January 29th. I'm Margie Zaraletta.
A former sitcom star is making an unusual career change, going from in front of the camera to behind the wheel racing for NASCAR. Correspondent Gethin Coolball has more.
Former Malcolm in the Middle star Frankie Muniz is set to continue his NASCAR career with a full-time ride in the Truck Series for 2025. Muniz will make the jump from part-time racer to a full slate in the number 33 Ford for Ream Brothers Racing. He made 2 starts for Ream Brothers this season in the Truck Series. The 38-year-old actor turned race car driver is scheduled to compete in the Truck Series race Saturday at Homestead Miami Speedway. He competed twice this season in NASCAR's second-tier Xfinity Series, including the opener at Daytona International Speedway. I'm Gethin Coolbaugh.
America in the Morning for Thursday, October 24th, 2024 is produced by Jeff McKay, senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour.
Less than 2 weeks to go and the gloves are coming off. I'm Clayton Neville.
The U.S. says North Korea has sent some 3,000 troops to Russia. Sagar Meghani at the White House.
McDonald's is working to reassure customers that its restaurants are safe after an E. coli outbreak. I'm Ed Donahue.
The parents and kids found dead in their Falls City, Washington home outside Seattle have been identified. I'm Sue Aller.
Turmoil at the Los Angeles Times, the EPA's lead pipe problem, and a cyber attack targets a battleground state's voter website.
Some people have a unique approach on where to sleep when Taylor Swift is in town. I'm Kevin Carr.
Back after these messages. This is America in the Morning. AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton is at the national map with a look at a fall pattern that seemed to now settle in.
Following a cold front that continues to push off the east coast, the latest rare chance for precipitation gives way to a cooler day today from the northeast into the mid-Atlantic. Temperatures will finally return to the 50s and 60s for many after a rather warm start to this week that featured some new daily record highs in a few spots. However, breezy conditions also linger for a time behind the front, especially from the Delmarva Peninsula through the southern Maine coast, and with a combination of gusty winds, low relative humidity, and an abundance of dry leaves on the ground, there will be an elevated fire risk for eastern sections of Maryland and Pennsylvania through much of New Hampshire and even areas north of Portland, Maine. By contrast, just enough Gulf of Mexico moisture will flow northward in association with the next storm crossing the center of the nation that there can even be some severe thunderstorms developing this afternoon and into the evening within a fairly small zone from the Kansas City metro area into southern Iowa, with showers instead across the Dakotas and into the northern High Plains. Hail will be the main threat with these storms, but there can be a few fairly strong wind gusts within these rather brief downpours. Otherwise, the storm will transition to more of a rain event tonight, with some much-needed rain from the upper Midwest into mainly western parts of the Great Lakes region, with a dry day in store from the central and southern plains across the southeast. In the west, a couple of snow flurries can linger early in the high ground of northwestern Wyoming and parts of far southern Montana and eastern Idaho, but the rest of the region has another dry day to come today, with very warm conditions present yet again for the interior southwest, but cooler air across the northwest. That's the weather across America. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
I'm John Trout. Remember to follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. With less than 2 weeks to go and record numbers in early voting, the final push on the campaign trail is bringing a slew of rallies and interviews for the candidates and their running mates in battleground states. With today's campaign trail update, here's our Clayton Neville.
Former President Donald Trump doubling down on campaign promises as we head down the home stretch in the race for the presidency, addressing immigration at the southern border, a top priority.
It's going to be the first order. It'll be done in the first hour of the first day.
And Harris's role as vice president over the last 4 years, a critical talking point for Trump, who insists things would have been different if he had stayed in office.
You wouldn't have had Russia attacking Ukraine. You wouldn't have had October 7th, which was Israel. And the horrible, most embarrassing moment in the history of our country was Afghanistan.
The former president was in Georgia for the Believers in Ballots Faith Town Hall.
When you have faith, when you believe in God, it's a big advantage over people that don't have that. It's a big advantage.
Then it was on to Duluth, where he rallied with the conservative group Turning Point Action. Meanwhile, Democrats using recent comments by ex-Trump Chief of Staff John Kelly to the New York Times to paint Trump as a dictator. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre.
You've heard from the former president himself saying that he is going to be a dictator on day one. This is him, not us. This is him.
Kelly reportedly said that Trump had made admiring comments about Adolf Hitler to him in the past.
He wants a military that is loyal to him.
Vice President Harris held a press conference specifically to address the Trump comments and suggested that her opponent is becoming increasingly unhinged.
We know what Donald Trump wants. He wants unchecked power.
Harris later held a town hall in Delaware County, Pennsylvania, hosted by CNN, and her running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, voted yesterday.
Super exciting. Cast my vote for Kamala Harris, Amy Klobuchar, Betty McCollum, and had my son with me, Gus, to vote for the first time. Exciting, an opportunity to turn the page on the chaos of Donald Trump in a new way forward.
Trump's running mate, Senator J.D. Vance, campaigning in Las Vegas. He went after Harris's performance in recent interviews.
I think that maybe in her heart of hearts, Kamala Harris is actually rooting for me and President Trump in this race. Because why would she keep doing all these interviews where she just goes out there and makes our case for us?
Harris slated to appear today at a Get Out the Vote rally in Atlanta. She'll be joined by former President Obama and Bruce Springsteen. Tomorrow, she's expected to go to Houston for a campaign event where she'll talk about reproductive freedom. As for Trump, he rallies in Arizona and Nevada today before going to Michigan tomorrow. I'm Clayton Neville.
Pentagon Chief Lloyd Austin says there's evidence North Korean troops are now inside Russia in an effort to fight for the Kremlin against Ukraine. Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani reports that nations supporting Kyiv came through with a massive loan funded by profits from frozen Russian assets.
The U.S. says North Korea has sent some 3,000 troops to Russia, though just why is uncertain.
This is an indication that he may be even in more trouble than most people realize. Again, he went tin cupping early on to get additional weapons and materials from DPRK and then from Iran, and now he's making a move to get more people. There is evidence that there are DPRK troops in Russia.
Pentagon Chief Lloyd Austin says what they're doing is left to be seen.
If they're co-belligerents, their intention is to participate in this war on Russia's behalf. That is a very, very serious issue.
Here at the White House, National Security spokesman John Kirby says the U.S. believes the soldiers traveled by ship to Russia's biggest Pacific port earlier this month.
Then traveled onward to multiple Russian military training sites in eastern Russia, where they are currently undergoing training.
Kirby says the U.S. does not know what comes next, but if the North Koreans become the first foreign troops to actually join the fighting,
if they do deploy to fight against Ukraine, they're fair game.
The U.S. and its G7 allies are moving ahead with a $50 billion loan for Ukraine, backed by frozen Russian funds. A White House official says nothing like this has ever been done before. The U.S. plans to loan $20 billion, split between economic and military aid for Ukraine. The other $30 billion will come from the European Union, UK, Canada, Japan, and others. The G7 said in June most of the loan would be backed by profit earned on roughly $260 billion in frozen Russian assets, most of which is being held in EU nations. Sagar Meghani at the White House.
A popular McDonald's sandwich item is off the menu, linked to an outbreak that has sickened dozens and left at least one person dead. Correspondent Ed Donahue reports that the FDA has zeroed in on what may have caused the E. coli contamination.
Quarter Pounders are now off the menu at 1/5 of McDonald's, from Oklahoma to Idaho. The CDC says E. coli linked to Quarter Pounders got at least 49 people sick in 10 states. One person died. A preliminary FDA investigation suggests fresh slivered onions served raw on Quarter Pounder hamburgers are likely the source of the contamination. McDonald's also serves raw slivered onions on one of its breakfast sandwiches, but that isn't available in the impacted states. Other burgers like the Big Mac use diced cooked onions. McDonald's says it's searching for a new regional supplier for fresh onions. I'm Ed Donahue.
Among the stories we're covering next, accused teenage killers day in court, and the EPA's billion-dollar mistake. That and more when America in the Morning returns after these messages. This is America in the Morning. I'm John Trout. A 15-year-old accused of killing his parents and 3 siblings in their home outside Seattle waived his right to appear in court. Sue Aller reports on the grief in Falls City, Washington, and official charges against the teen expected to be announced later today.
A heartbreaking situation has left a community in shock. In Falls City, Washington, a wealthy Seattle suburb, a 15-year-old boy is now in custody after allegedly killing 5 members of his family. One teenage girl survived the quintuple homicide. Neighbors seem to be in disbelief as they spoke to Cuomo News.
It's one of those cliche things, like everyone says on the news, like, you never suspected this.
Rhea Robinson was the soccer coach to one of the victims.
Dad worked so hard, and Mom was the most dedicated, loyal mother you could ask for.
The parents of the accused 15-year-old have been identified as Mark and Sarah Huminston. Police have not released the names of their 3 children who died. The surviving victim, who ran to a neighbor's house for help, was taken to Harborview Medical Center in Seattle and listed in satisfactory condition and not in the ICU. The teen suspect has yet to be charged, and prosecutors say he has no prior criminal history. I'm Sue Aller.
There's turmoil at one of the largest newspapers in the nation after the editorial chief submitted her resignation when the paper's owner refused to allow the editorial board to endorse Kamala Harris for president. Mariel Garza quit, telling the Columbia Journalism Review that she will not be silenced. However, the billionaire owner of the LA Times took to social media saying the editorial board had not followed through on a directive to draft a factual analysis of all the positive and negative policies by each candidate during their tenure at the White House and how the policies affected the nation, a statement that Garza refutes. America in the Morning continues. The Environmental Protection Agency is at risk of misallocating nearly $1 billion in lead pipe replacement funding to the wrong states. Correspondent Lisa Dwyer explains.
The issue appears to stem from an EPA survey where results were not verified, and some states' responses created inflated numbers, most notably Texas and Florida. The EPA's Inspector General's office says that it is possible that the EPA can still avoid much of the misallocation and can recover some of the funds that already went where they shouldn't have. But the errors mean that some states with the biggest needs may have to wait longer for their funds or may get less than they should have. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
Authorities are reporting a cyber attack targeting a Georgia voter website was uncovered before it could do damage. Fox News reports the Office of Georgia's Secretary of State said the attack intended to paralyze the battleground state's absentee voter website and did not originate in the United States. The portal, which was slowed but not stopped, is the website where voters request absentee ballots. Microsoft released a statement saying U.S. adversaries like Russia, China, and Iran have tried to undermine the democratic process through a variety of cyber tactics. It's a bird, it's a plane, it's flying air taxis, and correspondent Norman Hall reports the space-age idea is one key step closer to taking off.
Federal regulators have given a strong push to electric-powered air taxis by issuing a final rule for operating the aircraft and how pilots will be trained to fly them. These aircraft take off and land vertically like helicopters, but fly like fixed-winged planes. Many companies are working to get them to the market. The Federal Aviation Administration says it's stressing safety as it works to fold in the brand-new flight category, powered lift aircraft. Current technology limits their size and likely means they will be used most often in urban areas. I'm Norman Hall.
A huge breakthrough in 3D printing will soon allow you to print stainless steel parts and tools using X-rays and lasers. Here's Chuck Palm with that in today's Tech Report.
According to an article on the website scitechdaily.com, researchers have developed a breakthrough method of producing stainless steel on a 3D printer. Using bright X-rays and lasers, scientists have been able to 3D print a 17.4 pH stainless steel known for its robustness and corrosion resistance. The process uses high-energy X-ray diffraction to capture images every few milliseconds and adjust the material that was heated and cooled. Using the images, the team mapped correlation between process changes and modified the crystalline structure, which makes it capable of printing stainless steel tools and other parts. Metal alloys are particularly tricky to print in the manner due to rapid temperature changes that occur during the process. This technological advancement is particularly handy when you need to print tools on the space station. The research was conducted at UW-Madison, Wisconsin Center for Nanoscale Technology. For more tech news, follow me on X at Chuck Palm.
NFL football tonight. Sports with Robert Workman this morning.
NBA 10 season openers on night 2 of the new season. This year's first overtime game in LA saw the Suns shade the Clippers 116-113. Hornets rallied from down 18 to upend the Rockets 110-105. LaMelo Ball had 34 points.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, you come in, you got your first real game, so definitely want to win. New coach, new everything, we try to build a whole new thing. So just to come in and get that first win, it's a blessing.
Magic turned down the Heat. Paolo Banchero with 33. Pelicans ran past the Bulls. Zion Williamson missed the opener with an illness, but Brandon Ingram played the role of Dr. Feelgood with 33 points. Bucks beat the 76ers. Philly without Joel Embiid and Paul George due to knee injuries. Warriors walloped the Blazers. Grizzlies held off the Jazz. Pacers popped the Pistons. Hawks got by the Nets, and the Cavaliers rolled over the Raptors. After a frozen frenzy full slate on Tuesday, only one NHL game last night. The Capitals flattened the Flyers 6-3, their 5th straight win. Alex Ovechkin got his 855th goal. He's now 40 away from passing Wayne Gretzky. Week 8 in the NFL begins tonight with the Vikings at the Rams. Week 9 in college football last night, Liberty saw its 17-game unbeaten streak end at the hands of Kennesaw State 27-24. It was the Owls' first win since moving up to FBS this year. Tonight, Syracuse is at number 19 Pittsburgh. The Panthers, one of 10 remaining undefeated teams, including top-ranked Oregon. And the World Series begins tomorrow in LA. The Yankees against the Dodgers. Garrett Cole and Jack Flaherty will be the starting pitchers in Game 1. That's Thursday Sports.
When we return on America in the Morning, new inductees to the Toy Hall of Fame after these messages. This is America in the Morning. Welcome back. Finding a place to sleep when Taylor Swift comes to town can be a challenge, including if you're the brother of Swift's boyfriend. Kevin Carr has details.
With Taylor Swift bringing the Eras Tour to New Orleans this weekend, it's almost impossible to find a hotel room. Louisiana Attorney General Liz Muriel also warned of price gouging at some hotels.
It's been brought to my attention that some hotels and businesses in New Orleans are allegedly canceling reservations made in advance and upcharging rooms ahead of the big Taylor Swift concerts this weekend.
One woman in New Orleans decided to help out fellow Swifties. Rebecca Fox booked 191 hotel rooms in town and is managing the reservations for fans via Facebook. She told New Orleans Fox 8 that she is specifically not jacking up the prices either.
We want to make sure that New Orleans is the best, is the most welcoming, is the safest, that they have the best time here.
At least one other fan has a unique way of dealing with finding a place to sleep. Jason Kelsey, brother of Taylor's main squeeze Travis, has been accused of falling asleep during Swift's concert in Miami last week. The Kelsey brothers addressed this on the latest episode of New Heights.
You took a nap at the Eras Tour. What is that all about?
Travis, you know I didn't take a nap. I did not take a nap.
Jason said he wasn't asleep, but just feeling the mood, which the Twitter photo couldn't show.
I'm just like sitting here and I'm just like feeling it and I'm tapping my thigh in the moment. And then all of a sudden I go on Twitter and I see this picture.
He also said that if you look closely at the picture, you'll see his hand tapping his thigh, which wouldn't happen if you were asleep. I'm Kevin Carr.
It's that time of year when we find out which toys find their place in history. Correspondent Julie Walker gives us a behind-the-scenes look at the selection process for the Toy Hall of Fame and Museum.
The National Toy Hall of Fame recognizes classic toys that they say deserve elevation and honor. The Strong National Museum of Play shows everything from Barbie to Monopoly to Cabbage Patch Kids.
This year's nominees include everything from card games like Phase 10 and Pokemon cards to classics like My Little Pony to the trampoline.
Curator Christopher Bench.
These are toys that everyone can recognize. Even if you never had a radio flyer wagon or a teddy bear, you know exactly what they were.
He says criteria include play value,
learning, creativity, discovery, socialization, activity,
and longevity.
These are toys that at least have been on the market for 20 years, so kids and their parents could both have grown up playing with them.
This year's Hall of Fame inductees are announced in November, picked by experts from thousands of suggestions from the public. Bench is hoping My Little Pony finally makes it in after years of trying. Julie Walker, New York.
America in the Morning for Thursday, October 24th, 2024 is produced by Jeff McKay. Senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One.